All right, hello and welcome to another developer interview with Nintendo Jump Podcast. Today we are joined by Nick Wozniak from Yacht Club Games. Nick, how are you, man?
I'm good. How are you guys?
I'm doing good, and with us on our side today, we also have Kevin and Sergio. How are you guys?
Doing pretty awesome. I am really excited, so I'm good to go.
Yeah, I'm doing pretty awesome as well.
Sweet. Nick, honestly, thank you so much for joining us. I don't know if you know, but our podcast, every month we do what we call our community game of the month. So we have our Discord community vote on the game that they want to play together for a month. It could be a new game, an old game, whatever. But for January of this year, they actually voted on Shovel Knight Treasure Trove. So we've been playing that thus far this month. As a community all together, those of us, including me, who haven't played since the original game's releases, and some people who haven't played at all.
Oh, nice. Very nice.
Yeah, are really getting to experience Shovel Knight. So it was a great opportunity. Really wanted to get you guys included on this, and get your thoughts. Just from where we stand, Shovel Knight is kind of a unique game. It's a unique situation. So we'll get into that in a little bit. But first of all, so you are currently a member of Yacht Club Games. Can you tell us a little bit about how Yacht Club came to be and a little history on it?
Yeah, sure. So, my name is Nick Wozniak. I do pixel art here at Yacht Club Games, and I have since the very beginning. We started pretty small. We started with 5 people. Well, no, we started with 6. Back when we started, we were just kind of doing stuff at one of the guys' apartments. We were getting together, and it was at Sean's apartment, and we would we were working on a mobile game, and it looked like a more high fidelity. It looked like a Way Forward games because we all worked together at Way Forward. And so as we were working on it, it just became kind of weird, and we wanted to be more serious about it, and make not mobile games, make a big boy game. And so we put our heads together, and it's what can we do? There's 6 of us, what can we actually do? And that resulted in a discussion that became Shovel Knight. So that's sort of the beginnings of the seed of the beginnings of what Yacht Club came. And then we went to the Kickstarter, and then the Kickstarter became a production, and then the over-promising of content became the last 6 years of my life, and here we are.
The rest is history, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so for anybody who doesn't know, Shovel Knight is a retro-styled 2D action platformer, kind of in the style of NES games, like Mega Man, Zelda 2, Mario Brothers 3, and so on. You announced it, actually, publicly in early 2013, and it went on Kickstarter at that point.
Yep.
From what I remember about that, the game funded extremely quickly.
Oh yeah, it was it was a little rocky at first. We released the Kickstarter in March, and then at the end of March, end of March is when we had PAX East, and so we actually took the game that we had, our little demo. And we took that to PAX East, and during PAX East is when it funded. So there was 2 weeks where it was yeah, it's doing okay. We raised $50K, and then we were at the place. I was oh yeah, we raised $75K. And then when we got back, it was crazy. We were doing updates every day, and we reached out to some YouTube friends that we had, and this is sort of before people stopped talking about Kickstarters.
Yeah.
So it was we had an article on IGN, and Game Grumps played, and sort of 2 best friends played. And a bunch of other YouTube guys that we met along the way kind of played for us, and the swell of support kind of just scaled up pretty significantly in the last 2 weeks, and in the last week alone we made $100K. So it was you look at the chart, and it's this cubic ramp of skyrocketing it, and it was great. So at the end, we raised about $300K.
and during that time, you met all your stretch goals. You started adding more stretch goals, and we'll get into that in a second.
Yeah.
But so eventually, those stretch goals became additional campaigns and Shovel Knight Showdown, which is a really cool fighting game, kind of in the vein of a Smash Brothers in Shovel Knight style, which is awesome. And that actually, so the development on the initial campaigns just wrapped up. So December is when your last two pieces of content came out, King of Cards and Showdown, like I said. So after all of that, I have really one main question for you. You know, how does it feel to finally be finished with what you set out like 6 years ago?
Well, it feels weird in two ways, because it's done and we're not doing production on it, but there's still people like that are doing QA on it right now, and there's some bug fixing that's happening so that we can fix issues that have come up post-launch.
Sure.
And so like a portion of the company is still working on Shovel Knight, and I still see it on monitors as I walk by. But also we're like a PR firm right now. Like we're just like talking about our game and just like putting up GIFs and videos and writing articles and all this stuff that's like really tangential to making a game. So it's like this weird, like, we finished, great, now just kind of like simmer for the next few months before we like start at the next project. And yeah, so it's kind of a weird thing. I'm not sure if I've experienced this before, because at Way Forward, previously, I was on like, 2 or 3 projects at once. And when one finished, I was crunching, and then I would finish, and then like maybe crunch would happen on the next project the next week. It was like, you're just like constantly battered with tasks and things to do, and you're not really like coming up with things to do, or you're not like, hey, it would be cool if like we put together an article about, the jump mechanics or whatever. Like that discussion never happened because we were always just like so busy as a work for hire studio. So I've never had like this weird simmering downtime. And so it's been weird. It's a huge weight off our shoulders, that's for sure.
Oh yeah, is it kind of relaxing to be in the simmer at this point, or does it just kind of feel like, are you kind of tense about it?
Oh no, it's definitely not tense. I'm just like, I'm eager to move on to the next thing. It is relaxing. We took the last couple weeks off of December. Like the office was closed. I didn't check my email for a lot of that, and for better or worse. And we just kind of hung out. That was nice. And now we're coming back to it. We're talking about next things. We're envisioning what our next few years are, and like having some big discussions. And just today we had a really important one. I can't really get into that, but we're talking about like what our next steps creatively are, which is new. We talked about like, hey, we want to do this, in general. Like there's as you plan ahead, there's like multiple levels of like detail, right? Like you can almost imagine like sketching out a drawing. Like you do the very, very basic sketch of what the plan is, and
sure.
And we've had that for a while, and that really focuses on like what it's technically going to be, like how are we going to structure the game technically, and then it was, well, what is this going to be genre-wise? Maybe this, what is this going to be like creatively? This could be anything. This could be another Shovel Knight game. This could be like starring a totally new character. This could be a racing game and not have characters or something like that. So, we talked about like that for a while, and today was sort of like one of the last pitches for something that we're going to do. And it went well, and so we have some good ideas.
Oh, that's awesome! I can't wait to.
Sorry, I'm trying to be super vague.
Yeah, no, it's fine. It's fine. Don't worry about it. I will wait anxiously.
Yeah, and like just given all the things that y'all have gone through, with Shovel Knight, like for the past 6 years, like, what were some of the biggest challenges that y'all had to face when making the games? Like, I'm sure there must have been tons of things that you had to go through. Like,
there's definitely lots, and each game had its own challenge, right? So, like with Shovel Knight, when we started with Shovel of Hope, we later renamed. The original Shovel Knight campaign, like I said, we did that Kickstarter, right? We got $300-something to fund it. Well, a bunch of that went to taxes, right. And then a bunch of that went to like just getting the office and like, and then like paying our salaries for the next year or so. But like we ran out, like we ran out of money in, I think, January or February of 2014, and we didn't release until June. And so for 4 or 6 months between that time, I borrowed money from my mom.
Wow.
I had to figure out a way to feed my wife and brand new baby daughter. It was a little scary, but we knew that once we released the game, we could sell it, and we could at least take a normal salary for a little bit, and that would tide us then it was well, even if it doesn't really do well, we can at least take enough salary to cover us until we apply to real jobs. Right. If this totally fails. But it didn't fail, and we were able to take normal salary at once post-launch by a couple weeks. It was actually a little scary because when you release a game, I can't really get into specifics too much, but basically it's pretty standard practice for companies to pay on they call it net 30 or net 60. Basically, you don't get paid every single time someone buys the game, right? You get paid in big lump sums. And so when in one of the distributors we released the game on, it was every 3 months. And so if we had released the game, we were coming up to the cutoff. We released June 26th, and I think the cutoff was July 2nd or something like that. And so if we had released the game a week later, we wouldn't have seen any money for it for another 3 months. And so it was we couldn't survive that. And so it was
crazy.
Definitely coming down to the wire. But eventually we were able to take some money and actually have a job again and buy things that weren't fast food.
Wow.
But yeah, there's challenges every single time. There's working a lot of overtime in Shovel of Hope and Plague of Shadows, which we stopped doing after that. Spectre of Torment, that was just we were trying to do 2 games at once, and eventually we had to stop doing the second game and focus only on Spectre Knight, and then King Knight just kind of kept dragging on, and we kept we kept running to just the scale of everything. So yeah, every game had its own really unique and difficult challenges to face.
Now, with that being said, how have you managed to give each of those games its own feeling and voice, despite their overall similarities? How'd you handle that?
Yeah, I guess it was spending all that time. It really does take time to just sit down and ask questions is this fun? Should we restart this concept? Is the mobility even working? For a long time, King Knight had a melee attack besides his bash, and it was we just have to have this basic thing so you can just do a thing without pushing you to the side, and that's scary. And so we went back and forth for a long time, and for a long time we during Spectre Knight there was we didn't have that tear that appears over the enemies, the targeting tear, and so it was hard to tell what was going to happen when you got close to somebody.
Yeah, I can't imagine that.
Yeah, that's that thing is the one of the few things that really made Spectre Knight work, and we actually patented it. It's officially patented.
Nice.
So don't copy it.
No, that's we won't. I gotta say, for something that because Spectre Knight is one of those mechanically it's one of those the most disconnected from anything that we kind of experienced before. We've seen dashing and such in games, but the up and down dashing relative to where you are close to people, I'm so glad that you added that.
Yeah, it's really fun, right? Yeah, we we spent a long time trying to figure out what's a cool way to be effortlessly cool. We saw after Shovel Knight came out and it was it's a hard game, and then Plague Knight came out and it's way too hard. This is a difficult game. What can we do to make Spectre Knight easier?
Oh, okay.
And so without making it dumb easy, it's sort of the mechanics kind of put you in positions where you're not putting yourself in peril all the time. Plague Knight was all about just being an expert and learning how to really master that mobility.
Yeah,
Spectre Knight
because
was
like
sort of like you can do whatever you want, and you'll look awesome when you do it.
I gotta be honest, like I thought Plague Knight was the hardest to learn because
Hmm.
actually in the very beginning when I had to learn how to jump with the bomb mechanic, I was like, oh, okay, this is even at the very beginning I was trying to figure out, okay, how do I do this, and I had to restart that the very
Yeah.
beginning of the level. And go, oh, okay, you have to hold the button. I'm like, oh, got it, and I thought it was pretty unique, and I didn't expect it because like I played the original back in 2014. I was like, okay, this is like it's very fluid and like I can jump really high, but with Plague Knight, I'm like, man, like it's kind of hard to jump high. So it took me a little bit. I got it was pretty cool,
Well, that
definitely.
was kind of one of the things like about it is that in Plague Knight, you're going through basically the same levels. Each level has its own little extra
Exactly.
dog leg, but you're going through
Yeah.
the same levels. And so if you have a mastery of the mechanics really early on, there's like sort of like not new things to experiment with or learn. And so Plague Knight
Hmm.
is sort of like the opposite of Shovel Knight, where Shovel Knight is like his mobility and all of his mechanics in the first 4 or 5 screens.
Right.
But Plague Knight, you're kind of learning the nuance of how to control a character throughout the whole
Hmm.
game, and so it makes it interesting to actually go through those same screens before. Where before you had to like touch everything and touch all the ladders and like stand on all the moving platforms. With Plague Knight, you kind of start to learn how to circumvent what's there,
Hmm.
and so that's why he's more complicated. He's like the mastery isn't the level structure; it's him. You know.
Yeah, I felt like the one thing I thought about was timing. Like timing was so
Yes,
important.
definitely.
So, and then I felt the same way with Spectre Knight too. Like when you like depending on where you are, like you up dash or down dash. Like I'm like, oh, okay, this is. I just thought it was pretty. It's just so. I mean, even though it's like within the same realm, it's like it's so different, which I think is your biggest strength for the game as the series as a whole. So.
Oh, well, thanks. I'm glad you liked it. Yeah, Spectre Knight was really fun to work on, just because he was everything you did with Spectre Knight was like really like explosive and fun and fast. And once we started, you know, sanding down the rough edges, it became a really smooth experience overall.
Nice, nice. And early on in the development, was there a moment that you recall feeling like the game was it was gonna be something special? Was there any particular moment that sort of told you, yeah, this is gonna catch on fire?
I don't think there was anything specific that was like we're gonna be a big thing and we're gonna sell way more copies than we think. I was always skeptical of that actually. I thought we were gonna like fail, crash and burn. But I think when you bring it to shows and like we bring Shovel Knight to PAX East and PAX West a lot, and when you actually go there and you see people playing it and you see just like their reactions and you have like conversations with people in line and they express their enthusiasm for the game you're making and how it reflects on their history and
Hmm.
just hearing their experiences with it, and then later down the line, like or like seeing like kids play it. Those kind of things really help for just like getting a general sense of like how people are going to like it. When there's a huge 35-minute, 45-minute wait to play your game, then like okay, well people want
Mm.
this. And we kind of had a sense of that even at the first PAX East. The crowds are crazy. And I don't know. I personally I know I love this game, but I don't know why people also love this game. It's like it just felt kind of weird. But yeah, it's definitely vindicating to see like the reaction to people talking about it, and like the general consensus was like, this is like my favorite game on Kickstarter. This is like what Kickstarter should be or whatever, and like a lot of that
Right.
narrative was happening, and that kind of thing just like helped along the way. And so when we ran out of money, I didn't feel the need to go and get a new job. I felt like it was going to be okay, but also like the other part of me was like it's going to fail. So I don't know. I had to shut up that part of me that was like
Mm.
the doubting part, and just trust that people were going to love it.
Well, you came out. I mean, you mentioned it a little bit ago. You came out at a kind of a weird time for Kickstarted games,
Mm-hmm.
where a lot of games, I'm sure and I don't need to mention them specifically, but a lot of games didn't really meet their goals. Kind of disappointed a lot of people. First of all, just as a personal note, the fact that you guys actually carried through and made sure to meet each stretch goal is admirable, and honestly,
it's impressive for sure. Like,
I'm really happy you guys actually carried
I felt
that
like that was
out.
a promise we made.
mhm.
But overall, so when you start seeing the crowds and this coming in, what did you attribute the game's success to? Did you ever like really whittle it down, like this is why this game is catching so many people like this?
I think at the time, there's probably a few factors, right? Like at the time, there hadn't been a really like galvanizing indie game for a while. There hadn't been a Mega Man game that people liked a lot for a while.
Right.
There hadn't just been like a simple like, this is fun just because it's like a platformer and it's fun. You know, like it's hard to find other platformers out there that are just like, you can play it, it's fun, it's hard, but not like crushingly difficult. It's like got appealing characters that like you can show to your mom or whatever, and she's like, "Oh, cool, that's cute, honey." It's not like I don't know, like it just like fits the slot of the niche that it is. You know, it's a kids game that appeals to all kids of all ages. It's sort of like a game that no one's like ashamed to say that they like because for whatever reason. It's got pixel art that reminds you of like your favorite games in the NES era. So
Yeah.
I think it just like it hit all the things that we were going for, and hit all the things that like people kind of needed at that time. And yeah, but there's like there's lots of games like that just like kind of don't get the fame and recognition that Shovel Knight did, and so I can't attribute everything to just us. There is definitely a portion of it which is like luck. You know, like it's very lucky that we came out in March and not in February with our Kickstarter because of how PAX East went. It's very lucky that we were like one of the last few Kickstarters before like after our Kickstarter like hit news articles and stuff. There was a bunch of articles I think in like April or May where like, you know, Kotaku comes out and like, we're not going to be talking about Kickstarters anymore, and here's why. And like,
Wow.
same thing. It was like, oh geez, like, you know, we kind of just made it in there. And there was a bunch of like, just, you know, factors that were totally outside of our control that providentially just made it so that we could like succeed in our space. So I feel very, very, very thankful that we were able to do that. And very lucky.
Yeah, and you know, like there's a lot of things that we love about this series, and like especially the soundtrack. You know, like you know, with Jake Kaufman and excuse me if I butcher this, hopefully I don't. Manami Matsume, Matsume, they did a phenomenal job in creating some of the best chiptune music we've ever heard.
Oh yeah.
You know, and with that being said, how did it feel when you first heard that, like what they did and placed it in the game? Like that must have been like amazing.
Definitely spoiled. I've heard Jake's music for a long time, and it's always been amazing. But even then, you know, having heard and been a fan of Jake for a long time, because he worked at Way Forward as well for a while, and
I see. Yeah.
When he first delivered the songs to Shovel Knight, it was like, oh my god, these are so amazing! Like this is like so good. I've heard other stuff like he's done, and he just knocks it out of the park. And he does it so authentically and with such like genuine enthusiasm, and so it's like we first heard Pridemore keep the song for that, and that was like it really was awesome. It really worked, you know. And then we heard the trailer music, and it was like, oh my god, this is like exactly what is gonna gonna be amazing. You know, the trailer sucks without that music. You know, it's so good, once the music was in, especially for the trailer, it was like, oh, this is like really, really, really real. We have to make this good. I feel like I have to live up to Jake's talent and his skill. And then working with Manami, we didn't personally work with her. She worked with Jake actually. But when that happened, so that kind of happened in a weird way. During the Kickstarter, we got a message from Mohammed Taher. He's in charge of a company called Brave Wave, and his goal was to bring to do what he did, which is to bring like classic composers from the video game era, you know, NES era, the SNES era, into more modern times, and so his idea was to introduce Manami Matsume, the original composer for Mega Man 1, and hook her up with us. And so we just got this message out of the blue on Kickstarter. It's like, hey, I had this opportunity. And we were like, you're a scam. There's no way. there's no way. And then we just kept talking, and it was real. And then like she sent a sample over, and I was like, I don't know. This sounds cool, but is this like, are all the arpeggios aligned or whatever? And I have no music experience, And so
right.
I was like, Jake, we're like, Jake, listen to this. Is this good? And he was like, oh yeah, no, this is great. And so
Nice.
we kind of kept going, and then she eventually delivered the final song. He was really impressed, and we were all like really into it. And he like kind of remixed it a little bit to be in more in the style, because hers is more simplistic and strongly focused on a single melody, and Jake has a lot of like action and movement in his. And so like he brought those two together, and the songs that she wrote are some of the best on the soundtrack now. So
That's so cool.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
And eventually we got to meet her and like actually shake hands with her and give her a big hug, and she's awesome.
Nice.
So very talented. She did a concert with Jake at a really small venue, and it was a good time.
I am so jealous right now, but it's okay.
That's cool.
Nice. And, we're sure you know this. The indie scene has changed a lot in the past 6 years. But with that in mind, have you, as a development team, have you guys changed the way you develop each of the campaigns to keep it fresh and exciting for you guys as a developer and also for the fans?
It's weird because we do see these as different games, but because they are so built on the last game, or at least like they're all in the same engine, they're all using the same code base, they all share a lot of assets, they don't actually feel like we're reevaluating our workflows and stuff. And so we are like making constant changes and coming up with new tool tweaks and adjusting our workflow in small ways. But the productions have felt more or less just like 4 of the same kind of level of production. That said, we have hired more people, and so like we can offload some of the stuff that kind of distracted us. And so for a while, like in the beginning, when there's only 5 of us during production, we were all in charge of everything. Like I had to arrange for health insurance and property insurance, and somebody else was like in charge of like talking to the bank, and so somebody else was like the lawyer contact. And so like all the nonsense, like the operations stuff, we've been able to hire and get somebody else to handle that, and let alone like any future business to business kind of dealings, that kind of stuff. Like we've been able to like separate from game production, and it's been nice. It's been really, really nice.
you get to just like start focusing on making games.
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
I imagine that's a nice break from the HR stuff.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So it may be kind of hard for you guys to see this, from the inside, but from the outside, you guys have been growing and improving with each release. Like seriously, each one is a little more fleshed out, a little more user friendly and playable and awesome. Like Shovel Knight was awesome, but getting the ability to play all 4 kind of back to back now has been really cool, because King of Cards is a completely different game than Shovel Knight. With that said, is there anything like, after making these other 3 campaigns and the fighting game and everything that you've done on it so far, is there anything that, like, if you could go back, that you would add or change about the original Shovel Knight?
Oh, the original Shovel Knight. There's a few art things that would change. So one thing is the Shovel Knight's stance is only 15 pixels wide, and I would make it 16 pixels because that became kind of a standard.
Gotcha.
Spectre Knight's a little hunched forward, and so that when he runs into collision, his head's sort of like in the wall. There's like small animation stuff that kind of got out of hand, and a bunch of like backgrounds that got too detailed that would kind of like go through and make everything kind of like feel more homogenized to a certain extent. But I think also it's hard to say what we should go back and change, just because like each one sort of does feel like it's growing from the last one, and so the improvements are kind of felt a little bit. I wish that it sort of felt more consistent, but in general, I'm really happy with where where the treasure trove is sort of at. But there's like really small nitpicks that you can always just like go back and tweak and change that I feel like I want to.
At this point, it's a classic, so don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just based off your answer, I really like the attention to detail. I mean, you mentioned like from 15 to 16 pixels. I'm like, when you nitpick in that sort of way, you know that you have a good product. Like, I think that's great. Like,
No, either that or that I'm like a neurotic, obsessive person.
No, it's. I think it attributes to just the dedication and how hard you guys work to get to where you guys are at. And I mean, like Daryl mentioned, like obviously people love Shovel Knight as a character. I mean, he has shown up in dozens of other games, including other indie games, crossover fighting games, his own amiibo, and even Super Smash Brothers. With that being said, can you talk about how some of those appearances happened? Where can we expect to see him pop up next?
Oh, I think the answer to that is everywhere.
Good.
Like,
Excellent.
Nice.
We have no problem shoving him in every place. But in general, where collaborations and stuff usually come up when, as far as like cameos go, somebody will reach out and say, "Hey, we want to put Shovel Knight in our game," and we'll say, "Cool." We'll, for the most part. Sometimes we say no, but that's just like we evaluate it as we go. And usually it's like just he's just like sitting in the background. We don't mind just like letting someone do it. But if it's like some deal and like you're buying his skin in something, then it gets more complicated. But for the most part, it's just like
gotcha.
We like that people are excited for it, and like seeing Shovel Knight in some big giant game like Smash Brothers. We're like really excited just to see it there. So it's mutual shared excitement. We like seeing Shovel Knight out there. He's been in like I think close to 30 games. And some of them are really just small background things. You find like a cartridge that has Shovel Knight on it, or some are like in Rivals of Aether. He's like fully playable and he's this whole character. Or Brawlhalla, there's like a whole set of them, and they're all skins for the
right.
With like one has a unique weapon. So,
Yep.
And so there's like we love all of it, and all of it comes from like us being excited for the game.
Yeah, so he's now in 4 Smash-like games, including Showdown and actually Super Smash Brothers Ultimate.
Yes.
He's if I'm remembering correctly, he's the only character that appears in a game with Banjo-Kazooie and ukulele, which is really funny. He's just everywhere. He connects all these universes, so it's fun to see.
And we have 2 cameos in our game too. We have Kratos and Battletoads and
that's right.
Corey Barlog he's the director and like the head of God of War at this point at Sony Santa Monica. He declared that Kratos' inclusion in Shovel Knight was canon to the God of War universe.
Oh wow!
So like Shovel Knight connects like God of War and Banjo-Kazooie.
God of War and Kirby. There's the
totally.
Oh, man.
Beautiful.
So you said you guys are playing you're playing the Treasure Trove on your Discord server. I'm actually really curious, where for people that haven't played, where are they starting? Are they starting at Shovel Knight, or are they starting at Spectre Knight? Like,
yeah, so we had a couple people who had never played the game before. I heavily recommended that they start with actually Shovel Knight, Shovel of Hope, just because I feel like every other story kind of colors that one in a little bit.
Definitely.
Whereas if you were to start with Spectre Knight, it may give you kind of a different shading of what Shovel Knight is. I figured start with the original. What I actually did, so I played through the original again. I had just finished up King of Cards because I couldn't wait on that one. And then I jumped to Spectre Knight, and then I jumped back to Plague Knight because Plague was traditionally the one I always considered my personal favorite.
Oh, really?
Yeah, just like the way he freaking like just flies through the levels once you get good at controlling him it's just really entertaining, and I was curious if it would still hold up. Yep, it still's my favorite. So there you
great.
go.
Wow, that's awesome.
I love Plague, and I love the story, just everything about it.
Yeah, I guess for me it was like Daryl. Like I played Shovel Knight from the when first time it came out. I played it on PC. I loved it, and then other games got in the way. Then I stopped, and then I was like, oh, you know what? I'm just gonna get Treasure Trove on the Switch. So I bought it on the Switch, and then I played through, and I gotta say, I thought that I would still love Shovel Knight as my number one, but I really do like King of Cards. It just my favorite. Two things I really liked. I liked how the levels are a bit shorter. So I think there's a lot more. I think that's the whole saying short and sweet, and also the card game was great. Like, I was just trying to get as many cards as I can and try to build the best deck ever.
Oh, that's really, really good to hear. I'm glad. Yeah. I always love hearing people who like really resonated with the card game, because that was definitely the thing that we're like not sure of. It was we made it so that it's totally optional. Like, you don't have to play a single game of cards,
right?
Because we didn't want that to be a thing that people felt like they had to do. But also, it's like it's really fun to play a card game sometimes, and so we try to make it as deep as possible while not being super necessary. So I'm glad to know that you resonate with that.
Yeah,
it was just so out of left field.
Yeah,
it took me a minute to click with it, and then I realized the depth that it actually has, and I'm like, oh wow, I need. Like, if you get back into like mobile app development or something, just seriously give me like an internet connected Joustus game, and I'd be all set.
Oh yeah, for sure. We're constantly thinking about ways to extend Joustus, and then like maybe we'll put Joustus in all of our future games. Like whatever you play next might have a Joustus game.
I'll tell you what. Like, if you release a physical version of Joustus, I'm 100% in.
Oh yeah.
Like, the thing for me, yeah, thanks. And the thing for me about Joustus was that it reminded me so much of Final Fantasy VIII's Triple Triad, like because that was one of my favorite things about the game, and I was like, man, like this is perfect. I get to play a platformer and a card game at the same time. Like, yo, this is like so wild.
I was noticing my playtime on the campaigns. It's like 7 hours, 7 hours, 7 hours, 25 hours. I was like, what?
Yeah, a card game will do that to you.
Oh.
Yeah, Triple Triad was definitely one of the places that we started from. We were like, hey, let's make a game that's like physical and interactive, like, Triple Triad. We played, there's a board game, or I don't know if you call it a board game, but a tabletop game called Hive, which involves these tiles that kind of move around and have their own like characteristics and mobility. I highly recommend that game. You play little bugs. And it's like you played an ant tile, and the ant tile, he can like crawl around the outside of the hive, which is a collection of other bugs. The cricket can jump in a straight line. So like having game pieces that had personality and traits was something really appealing to us. And so we tried to make every card have its own thing. Like the the sign knife, it pushes left and one up or down, I forget which, and then it flips. And so like as it's going through the board, and it auto moves, so it looks like it's moving the way it does in the game. So we had a lot of fun with that.
Oh, that's that's
awesome.
crazy.
Wow.
Some of the later cards there that do the automatic moving and flipping and stuff, I was like, that's a bit much for me.
They're so chaotic.
I'm gonna stick with my my nice little corner pieces and call it a day. So yeah. No, we just kind of mentioned it. So Shovel Knight kind of told a story, and then each campaign since then has definitely filled it in and added more backstory and stuff. Was all that story and the saga kind of planned out from the beginning, or have you kind of learned it as you went through development?
So we had the story done for Shovel Knight. That was like we built that for Shovel Knight, right? And then as we approached Plague Knight, we kind of started over. And so with each campaign, we sort of like took what was there and where the hooks were and kind of made a new thing. For Plague Knight, it was like, hey, let's make the Lion King 1.5, where it's like told from the perspective of Timon and Pumbaa. And it turns out that they're the heroes at the end. Let's do that. Let's make a Plague Knight that's like he's telling the other side, like you're gonna walk under the town and see Shovel Knight above, but you were hiding in the sewer the whole time. That's Plague Knight. And so like we tell the story from his perspective, and then for Spectre Knight, it's like, hey, let's take a step back away from the romantic kind of story of sort of appealingly goofy scientist and tell more of a tragedy, and so we and kind of bring it back to it being a story of redemption. And so we told the story of Spectre Knight, and we set up small things like in Plague Knight's game, you find the locket, and the locket is like a huge deal in Spectre Knight's campaign. But at the end of Plague Knight, you realize that you kind of stole it from Spectre Knight, and so when you see it in Spectre Knight's campaign, you kind of like you realize how like important this thing was, and it's like, did they plan this all along? And it's like, no, we just like we knew we wanted to do something with it, and kind of like created the hooks there. There's more hooks that we have that you could latch onto and create your own stories. Involving like how we've depicted certain characters interacting with each other. Black Knight and Polar Knight at the end of Spectre Knight kind of have a moment, and he's like feeding Terrapin and stuff, trying to help him get back to health. And so there's little like snippets of things where people have said things and that they kind of like can branch off into their own stories, and it's a little ridiculous because it's like you could just like run wild with that, like the whole like Cooper or the what's his name, the airship enthusiast in Shovel Knight is the chicken with the cane, and he's like this airship reminds me of the one that I sold back when I was young or whatever, and he sounds like he's like, oh, I wonder what the story is with his airship. And then you play King Knight, and it's like, oh my god, it's like his airship. It's the big thing. We didn't plan on that at all. It was just like, we want to have an airship, and this guy talks about it, so maybe he's like in charge, and maybe he's like not got a cane yet. I wonder how he gets the cane.
That's so cool.
I'm not gonna lie. I really like the airship thing because I just immediately thought of Final Fantasy. I was like, yes, this is great.
Totally. Yeah, and Jake was like, "Oh, it should have like when you go up to the airship, it should sound like this specific Final Fantasy song," and he like had it already in his head, and so it sounds like this airship song from Final Fantasy V. I think I forget which one it is.
That's so cool.
But he made it sound like a real one.
So which campaign story would you say was the most fun to actually complete? Like, which one was? Would it be all the way to the first one, or was it like these filling in the additional details?
Oh man, it's hard to say because it's fun to kind of give satisfaction to all the things that are set up, and it was fun to create all the. I don't want to spoil too much, but like the ending of King of Cards and how it like plays on your expectations, I think was fun. The tragedy of Spectre Knight and like his redemption story, that was fun to like create the moments for it, because I think those moments kind of land really well in terms of like their pacing throughout the rest of the game. Yeah. So it's hard to say what. I also like in Showdown we added all these like little stories for each character, and they have little tiny snippets of what could be. And so it was fun. Like the one of my favorites of that one is in Phantom Striker. He visits this mausoleum / grave marker of 3 fallen heroes, and you're like, who are those people? And there's not a question answered there. I think it's interesting just like to create. That's another hook, by the way. That like if we were gonna make the Phantom Striker story, those 3 characters would fall in and be like major players, right?
The Knights of Striker.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Or maybe they're like the Knights of Zorix, right? Like what's the cube of Zorix? And so there's a lot of like stuff that gets set up that's fun to do. So I don't know. Working on the things that are like story focused, it's fun because you can do very little with like a lot of impact. We don't have to do a lot of voice recording or mocap or any of that. We just like set up a couple things and it's more complicated than that, but you get a lot of bang for your buck, I think.
And like, what's your favorite campaign to play? Like, out of all of these, like.
My favorite, I guess, is King of Cards, just because there's so much there. And the card game is really fun.
Absolutely.
I like collecting things. I like to go and explore every inch of the world, and I like how much there is there, and I can forget all of it. I think with Shovel Knight, I've played through that game so many times that I like know every inch. But I think with King Knight, I couldn't. There's just like so much that you keep in your brain. You'll forget. Like you go through the ladder factory and go, oh yeah, like the ladder factory. I can't believe I forgot like this entire screen. Yeah. So there's I think there's just more variety and more things there, and I think King Knight's really fun to play as, and he's pretty unique, and he's a big old jerk, and that's fun.
Yeah, I gotta say he's my favorite. Like
Good.
I had such a good time just going through the campaign and the card game and back and forth, and like even at the ending I was like, man, this guy is I mean, he's like cool and a jerk at the same time. I was like, yo, this is dope.
I think my favorite moment is in all the campaigns is when he tells the running kid to lie, because I just love how like you think he's just kind of like a spoiled brat, but like what he's saying is it kind of makes sense, and he's like, he's a jerk and he doesn't care, and like that moment like really captures like who he is. He's like, he's gonna tell a kid to be a bad person, and like he doesn't care, and he thinks it's like a good advice. He's like proud of it, you know. He's like, yeah, just tell everybody that you're the fastest person. Nobody can test you if you don't race them, you know. Like no one can find out that you're a liar if they don't test it. And then he like walks away like proud of himself for that. I just love that moment of like corrupting the youth and like how subtle and like not a big deal it is, but he's also like a super jerk. So I just love that.
Then jump back to Shovel Knight, and that kid's like, I'm the fastest. You're like, no, you're not.
Yeah, exactly. He learned that from King Knight.
No, man.
He's like literally the slowest NPC we have, I think.
Yeah.
Nice. And personally, to you, which campaign was the most difficult to work on?
Most difficult? I think it may have been King Knight because of how long it was. I've been feeling like we're just going to be like done with this game for so long. But I say that, but also what the real answer is Shovel Knight, just because it was like grueling and we were working 100-hour weeks and not seeing our family and just like dying, and it was like not sustainable. So I think that was definitely the hardest. But creatively, it was hard to like stay enthusiastic through all of King Knight's development because it was so long, and but there's always stuff to do. So I don't know, definitely Shovel Knight. Yeah, and that was also like in Shovel Knight we didn't have a real office. We had an office, but like we were in a partitioned warehouse that had no windows, and so like we were in this like little cement cube and we painted the walls light blue, so it always felt like daytime, and you had no idea what time it was ever. And you're just like eternally working. A lot done.
Wow.
I guess.
Dang.
All right, so to jump from the most difficult, what was some of the most fun moments that you had working on any of the games?
One of the funnest things to do in all of the campaigns was to name things, because we don't come up with a name with the initial design. The initial design is just like a really quick sketch, a scrawl, and then it becomes a sketch, and then it becomes assets, and throughout all of that, there's no like necessarily thought to the name. You know, famously, the birder, that blue like lightning-y bouncing bird thing, is called Angle Bouncer, because we needed a thing that bounced on angles but had no idea what it was going to look like, and so we created the assets sort of like with that in mind, and then later it like became a birder. And so like we had we'll have like lots of meetings. We'll just sit down and we have a big list of the working in progress name: Angle Bouncer, Encroacher, Bug, Iron Knight, and which is not Iron Knuckle, like those kind of things. And it's like, and then we'll sit there and like we'll make dumb jokes, and we have docs and docs filled with just the dumbest names for things. It was really hard to think of a name for Joustus, so there's like 150 pitched names for that, and we just all went through those. For a while, it was going to be called Gemboozled or Gemboozle. Yeah, and that's why somebody says Gemboozled in the game. Like I think Toter says I've been Gemboozled. I don't know. So that's like a reference to that internally. But there's tons of just like fun and having thesaurus.com open and just like, well, it's a game about like pushing and a game about gems, and it's like in the story it's a farce, and in the the whole thing is like you got cards, and so like what can that be? It's like you're pushing the cards, and you want to push them longer. So let's call it push longer. So we can't call it push longer. There's a word in there we're not supposed to say. And so there's like a lot of like back and forth, like what that could possibly be. And some of the names were Claymore, I think was one of them, because like you're claiming territory, like you're claiming more than your opponent.
Oh, I like that. I think I mean, from what you've been saying, I think Joustus was the right call.
Potentially.
Just worked perfectly, honestly.
I mean, there's always like ideas that come up. Like one of the in Showdown, we never really landed on a great name, but it's Big Hits is the name of the mode. And what happens when you hit somebody, you knock them really far away, and so for a while we were calling that Far Knockers. And we can't ship that, So we had to figure out a different name, and Big Hits is what we landed on. But yeah, a lot of that stuff remains in some part of the code somewhere.
I'm extremely curious about Troupple, but I think I'm gonna.
Troupple was Troupple from the beginning.
Oh. Was he really?
Yeah. Somebody a couple of us saw. There's a company that ships apples called either they're the trout apples or the salmon apples. They're an apple company that uses a fish for their logo, and that was just the weirdest, dumbest thing to us. And so this idea of a half fish apple creature kept getting drawn, and then we made it like this like a forest spirit, god of the ancient forest.
He's so cool though.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you said it correctly. A lot of people say Truple or Truple.
Well, it even warns you in the game not to say Truple, so
yeah, we
there we go.
People skip that though. It's Troupple, like mouthful.
So the lead knight for each new campaign was voted by your Kickstarter backers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if you had to do one more campaign to really round out Treasure Trove, because we know it doesn't have enough content already, but you personally, Nick, you got to choose the main character from anybody remaining. Who would you choose?
Polar Knight, probably.
Nice.
Polar Knight is like, because he would have to change so much, right? He could not go through any of those
huge
levels. He's so big. Like how would we even do it? And so that's just like a fun idea. Like would he slide under everything, or just like bash through things? Would he would his game be totally a different kind of game? Would you play as a young Polar Knight and he's actually just 2 tiles tall? Yeah.
He's also got a lot of story potential with the backstory with Shovel and Black Knights and Shield Knight.
Definitely. Like why does he have a shovel? That's weird. We never explained that at all. So yeah, I think Polar Knight would be my answer. To really round off Treasure Trove,
yeah. Because like I said, it doesn't already have enough of your life in it.
You already spent. You admitted you spent 46 hours already playing this, and you didn't even talk about Showdown.
Yep.
You want more.
Speaking of Showdown, who's your favorite character?
Showdown, Liquid Samurai. So
okay.
For a long time, I was he was like one of the last guys that we announced, and we would show off the game though, and people would be like, who's your favorite character? Like, do you love Treasure Knight? And I'd be like, yeah, he's cool, but Liquid Samurai is the coolest. He can like go on the ceiling, and yeah, he's just a big troll, and I love him. He's fast, and he's great.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I think for me, maybe Mona. I like playing as Mona.
That Mona is Sean's our director. He's a Mona main for sure.
I think I just like her character though. So
yeah, exactly. She's awesome, but she's got a lot of versatility. Man, you can like knock those potions really far, and she's great.
So maybe the last question about the actual character. So where does Shovel Knight go from here? Obviously, we know Shovel Knight Dig is coming out soon. Is that the start of his Super Nintendo era, or does the next step remain to be seen? Can you share anything?
Well, we definitely are not. We are not putting Shovel Knight to rest. There's always going to be a Shovel Knight thing.
Nice.
And so, yeah, Dig is how we're doing that right now that we've talked about. There could be other ways that we haven't talked about yet. It's all secret. And yeah, I don't know. Going into the Super Nintendo era, like, Dig is good for that, right? Like, the guys at Nitro are really talented. The model creation guy, he like a guy who like makes the models and he does some animation, is named Gustav Kilman. He's been like a pixel hero to me for a long time, and the animators there like really good. Marcus is the animator there. He's like extremely talented. Like everybody over there is super talented, and so I'm happy to let them handle the higher resolution pixel art because I don't want to. High res pixel art is so hard. And they just do such a good job out of it. So they can handle it. I don't want to do a Super Nintendo Shovel Knight. But, we talked about in the past doing a 3D platformer would be really fun. Some of their ideas have definitely come up like doing an RPG, and I don't know if we'd do a Shovel Knight RPG, but that would be fun. So we have ideas for like other games to do. Oh yeah. I think I would just love to do an RPG in general. Like, I love that genre, and I think we could like bring a lot to the table because I feel like that genre is kind of like, for me personally, the RPG genre is kind of stale. I think we could do some things to make it really fun. So, and then I'd also just love to do big art for an RPG because you can just like do a big giant thing and like not have to animate it.
Yeah,
and I'm like a pretty lazy person, so that'd be really good.
Or like animate it like 3 frames, not like 50 frames. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I don't want to do something like I love it in Phantasy Star. It's so awkward, but like in Phantasy Star 1, you have like the backs of your characters and like the big monsters, and then like they awkwardly animate at you. Something about the jankiness of that is really appealing, and so I think that'd be kind of fun. Or like I guess the one that people know better is like Mother 3 or that like Earthbound, like that kind of like you have a character and like your character shows up on screen a little bit with the RPG stuff.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know. I think where we're going from here is just like trying to figure out ways to make our company grow and evolve and not just be like the pixel guys, like we want to make different genres and different kinds of games. And if you look at our jobs page, you might get a hint at what we're doing in the future. So that would be also, we're looking for people to hire.
Let me write that down real quick.
There we go.
So you guys were actually a launch title on Nintendo Switch, which was huge because there were only like 5 games out at the time.
Yeah, we know.
So Spectre Knight, I'm assuming was absolutely huge for you guys. What do you personally think about the Switch? Is that a platform you're going to continue to prioritize in the future? How was it working with Nintendo, that kind of thing?
Definitely, Switch is the best. I love having the Switch. I love being able to take it out of the dock and just kind of play with it somewhere else. If I want to play the game, I don't have to like turn my TV on and walk away from what I'm doing on my computer. I can just like kind of bring it over there, and then like if I'm watching a stream or whatever, I can keep doing that and kind of like have that in the background. I can bring the Switch wherever I want. It's eternally multiplayer. If like somebody has a Switch dock set up and I have my Switch, I can swap them out, and that's like really, really easy to do.
It's so nice.
It's so good. I love that console, and it's a good blend of being mobile and also an at-home station dock thing. So I love the Switch. I want to keep making games for it. It's definitely like one of the main SKUs for what we're doing next, and so it's the fact that you can just like have multiplayer right away is so interesting and cool. Mm-hmm. I don't know if we're gonna be the company that fully utilizes that, but like I love that there are games that are being made for it like that. Like the gimmicks for the Switch work well, Like the gimmicks for the Wii and the Wii U were like kind of lackluster to me because it wasn't like
You don't like
accelerometer, and I don't like a giant thing in my hands. Although I do like 2 screens, that's fun. But for the most part, like that kind of fell flat, and like other consoles don't do gimmicks, or if they do, they're bad. But like the Switch is like those are the things like that I want to see do well, So I love the Switch.
That's awesome that you love playing on your Switch. But what is currently your favorite Nintendo Switch game?
Baba's You.
Oh, what a good pick.
That's
Baba Is You. The guy who makes that also made my favorite Metroid game called Environmental Station Alpha.
Okay.
If you haven't played that, that is like my favorite Metroid game. Maybe more than Super Metroid.
Oh, wow.
It's so good.
That's
It's really
I have
fun.
to write that down too.
Here we go.
You do have to accept that the frame rate is not super great because he made it in like Multimedia Fusion or something. But it's a really fun game, and I can't wait for him to make a second one. I was like really sad that he was making this Baba Is You thing.
Oh, then it's great though.
I know, but I've been wanting ESA 2 for so long, and then he like put it out, and I was like, oh wait, Baba Is You is like awesome. And so that's the thing that's like on my Switch currently that I've been playing, and I'm really far into it, and like I'm at the point where I have to like do one puzzle, and it takes like an hour. It's like so hard,
and it makes you feel dumb because you only have like 6 options. But
I just like, what is going on? Like I did a puzzle the other day that I've been trying for the past like 3 sessions to finish it, and it finally occurred to me that I've been overlooking. I don't have to have this character have push. I can use that elsewhere. Anyway, that game is brilliant, and the fact that he's making a level editor for it is like so awesome. So yeah, Baba Is You the best. Baba Is You is the best.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. What other games, not developed by or published by Yacht Club, are you guys currently playing or in the office or in your personal time? What else do you want to like highlight?
Well, so I like Baba Is You. We play Smash every now and then. I personally have not been playing games lately. I've been spending my time actually streaming. So I Twitch stream art at night.
Oh, that's cool.
And it's been a lot of fun.
Awesome.
And the other guys have been playing like Death Stranding. Has been going through the office. Everybody loves that. Recently we've just been playing other games to like think about what games to make, and so like a lot of weird games have been played. Like I said, somebody was playing Phantasy Star online, or Phantasy Star not online, Phantasy Star 1 or 2, and somebody else is playing just a random like Neo Geo Pocket game. Like there's all kinds of stuff that we're like researching. I don't want to like say exactly because that like kind of gives away stuff, but but yeah, we play lots of games and we talk about them all the time. I want to finish up Baba Is You. I want to 100% that game. That game is really fun.
Yeah, I love that game. So I guess that kind of wraps up our questions from our side. Is there anything else that you want to let us know that Yacht Club's working on, or that you guys want us to focus on when playing these games, or anything like that?
No, I think when you play King of Cars, there's like a deluge of content. So I don't know if I can highlight anything. There's just like so many things to talk about. But yeah, there's lots of cool stuff that we're still working on, and there's cheat codes out there for the game that I don't think we've revealed all of them. We probably have, but a lot of those have been data mined out anyway. But yeah, there's a ton of cheat codes and like ways to play as different colors, and we made it so that those don't affect your ability to get achievements. So you can still so now you like are allowed to play as those different colors. We took it past that. We're done with Shovel Knight, but we're not like done with Shovel Knight, So yeah, as we're working on stuff now, I just say just stay tuned for what we're doing. We stream as a company. We're starting to do that again every other Tuesday. And we just had a really quick one 2 days ago, and we're going to have another one in a couple weeks, and it's going to be more involved, and we'll play games, hang out, you can ask questions there.
That's awesome. We'll check you out.
Good stuff.
Nick, thanks so much for coming on, man.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it. Really appreciated your games. It's been a lot of fun. So yeah, thanks again, and we definitely look forward to whatever is next coming up.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. And I just want to say on behalf of our Discord community, thank you as well. Like we do have like really huge fans of the series, and it's just really exciting. And yeah, thank you again, and it's been great.
Oh, good. Thank you. Thanks for having a community that's like that values Shovel Knight. I appreciate it.
Only the best. Thanks, Nick.
For sure.